Yeah, thank you very much
Of course.
for being with us here. But yeah, we're just gonna jump right into it. So first off, just looking more at a Go Blue guarantee affordability angle. According to data provided by Public Affairs, 1,700 students currently enrolled qualify for the Go Blue guarantee. However, there are many other expenses that students cite as being too far out of their price range, such as housing or textbooks. So given data released in 2017 by the Equality Opportunity Project highlighting low socioeconomic diversity at the university, specific with statistic, the median family income of a student ranking as the highest among 27 highly selected public colleges. How are you combating that stigma that higher education is reserved for those of higher socioeconomic status?
Well, I think it's a huge problem, and it's not just here at Michigan, it's all around the country. It's public universities and private universities, particularly ones that are at the level of excellence where we recruit the best students in Michigan and the best students all around the country. We've been investing increasingly in need-based financial aid for more than a decade. The average increase in the financial aid budget each year is approaching 10% per year. It's the fastest growing thing in our budget. And it bespeaks a commitment to the importance of socioeconomic diversity at the university, and a recognition that we have not been successful or as successful as we should be. The Go Blue Guarantee is a new effort, as you know, that I'm incredibly optimistic about because of its simplicity. It guarantees at least 4 years of a scholarship equal to free tuition for students who come from families in the lower half of the socioeconomic spectrum of the state. The important thing to realize, and in direct response to your question, that's a minimum amount of aid. Each student's aid package is adjusted based on an analysis of their own family's capacity and the student's needs. So students in that range, there are some students that are here who get tuition, room, board, books, all the way up to full cost of attendance. And there are students from families that make more than $65,000 a year that get financial aid equal to or greater than tuition. It depends on individual circumstances, but the Go Blue Guarantee is just that, a guarantee that will provide you with at least 4 years of free tuition based on your family's need for families at 65,000 or below.
And then what's that idea of like the very large campaign about Go Blue Guarantee, letting everyone know, is the idea that they could possibly get more costs covered as well known in a media campaign?
The most important thing about this campaign is to make sure that every student in the state of Michigan who aspires to this level of educational opportunity feels free to apply without the worry that if they apply, they'd be disappointed because they couldn't afford it.
Okay.
That's the idea. And the word free is very powerful, and we're receiving great response. We don't have final data because we're sort of in the middle of the first full recruitment and admission cycle under the Go Blue Guarantee. But application numbers are up, and the proof will be in the pudding. And I think it's going to take a number of years because we do have a long way to go. But socioeconomic diversity is one of the major and important types of diversity that our DEI campaign is working on. It's important for two reasons. One is, the educational milieu, your fellow students, you learn a tremendous amount from. And you learn more from people that are different. So the more different types of diversity we can cultivate, the better your learning experience will be. And then secondarily, one of the important roles of the University of Michigan for the state of Michigan is to be a driver of its future economic growth and future economic opportunity. And to do that effectively, we have to reach to everybody in the state, whether you're growing up in a rural community or in the Upper Peninsula or in a wealthy family in the Detroit suburbs or a relatively impoverished family somewhere else in the state. Talent is absolutely everywhere, and my challenge is to find great ways to identify that talent and an economic model that supports them coming here regardless of their economic means, and that's the Go Blue Guarantee.
Thank you very much. Then moving on towards more national politics and how the university's
Oh, great.
responding. Yeah, I know those are your favorite. So we just had a question surrounding the future of the deferred action for childhood arrivals. It's continued to make national headlines as President Trump has appeared to take more bipartisan stances, even though we're going into that government shutdown period on the future of immigration negotiations. So you've stated in the past that you will continue to support undocumented immigrants on this campus. But what specific actions is your administration taking to do this? As members of the university community potentially continue to lose DACA protections by the day.
Sure. So what we continue to do, because this isn't new, this has been going on for many months, and the protections we provide all our students are very long-standing. They're not new at all. First of all, we continue to lobby. So just the other day, I sent a letter along with the presidents of MSU and Wayne State to all of our congressional delegation, urging them to continue to put pressure on folks that are negotiating either the current continuing resolution or next year's budget, and the way it gets tied together with issues around immigration. So we continue to lobby our local delegation, and then in collaboration with universities all around the country, we're lobbying nationally. So that pressure continues, and it is enough pressure to shut down the government. I think that is one of the main issues on the table that is so serious to so many of our elected representatives that it's caused an impasse in funding the entire government. So it's getting attention. I'm perpetually optimistic that the case is so compelling that our elected representatives will do the right thing. But we continue to do the things to support DACA students and all of our students. The privacy rights that we afford to all of you exist without regard for immigration status. We don't track or keep lists of students based on immigration status. We protect your privacy and only reveal information under court order or legal mandate. We have a working group that continues to meet of faculty, students, staff, and administrators to track very carefully issues that are going on and to reach out to the student community and hear what's on your mind. To provide information, we have a website that we update continuously with information as things change. So it's steady as she goes as we continue to push hard on lobbying. And the frustration around DACA is it's one of those issues that has very significant support in many parts of the political spectrum. So I truly don't understand why we haven't been able to deal with this part of our immigration challenges, at least.
So then, specifically with the lobbying campaigns, but then looking more to, as students, as countries are being targeted, as maybe possibly losing their status, privacy protection is quite an important issue. But are there any other areas that you're reaching out to these students? Because as we're protecting their privacy, is there any sense of security that they won't have to leave from the university?
Well, as you might imagine, part of protecting them is not developing a list and turning them into a group. All our information at the university is public, so I don't want to violate the privacy of any of our students. But the students themselves know where to turn for help for our international student services, and we provide pretty comprehensive assistance to students who feel threatened because of their status. The broader issue around limits to immigration is we don't know who we're losing as potential members of our community. As I was first investigating this whole suite of issues, I learned that 20% of the Michigan faculty was born in another country. That's amazing, right? Think of the talent that we can attract from around the world that contribute to the excellence of the university, and I would never want to see that threatened by diminishing the ability of folks from any part of the world who want to come and teach and learn and do research here at a level that enhances the quality and the impact of the university. I would never want to put up a barrier to prevent them from coming. That's a big longer-term problem around how we handle immigration, not just DACA, but access to our nation in general.
Okay. Yeah, so kind of continuing on with issues that have been in the national political scene. So ex-MSU gymnastics team Dr. Larry Nassar is currently on trial for a number of civil and criminal charges after hundreds of women came forward with allegations of a sexual assault. So Michigan State's role in not just mitigating but enabling Nassar's abuse is at the heart of many survivor statements. So how do you think Michigan State should go about taking responsibility for or repairing harm? And then what lessons do these scandals contain for UMich athletics programs, and how will you go about ensuring students are safe from abuse?
Long and complicated question. So
Yeah.
the simplest part of that is my heart goes out to these, what appear to be hundreds of victims of a corrupt physician who committed multiple illegal acts over an extended period of time. The young women in particular who came forward to tell their stories, which were very personal and uniformly awful, in a public setting in the media, what brave people, and my heart goes out to them, and I hope that they can recover and heal from one after another after another. It sounds like just the worst experience I could imagine. I have 4 kids, and I can't imagine any of them going through what many of Dr. Nasser's patients went through. As for MSU and how it handled it, I don't know more than I read about in the newspaper, and generally when I don't know more than everybody else, I'm not really going to comment about it. I just can't add to the debate because I don't have any special information. One thing this episode has done is it's told all universities around the country, and certainly us, that we have to continue working hard on issues around assuring the safety and well-being of all our students, everyone in the community. And your question was focused on athletic teams, and that's important, but it's not just athletic teams. We're here on this campus. I'm responsible for 45,000 students, and only 1,000 of them are student athletes or so. So we've been working pretty consistently through the decades on issues around sexual harassment and sexual misconduct. We spent a lot of time, or I spent a lot of time with your predecessors as editors and reporters, as we were looking at our student-focused policies around sexual misconduct that we continue to examine and try to improve. But it's not just focused on students. All members of our community deserve a workplace free of harassment and misconduct. We've got multiple mechanisms for people to report that misconduct of many different types, students, faculty, and staff mechanisms. There are educational programs that we apply to students, faculty, and staff, different programs, in an effort to make everyone aware and to diminish the frequency of events and to help people understand how to report. And I think for us, that's the ongoing lesson of episodes like what happened with Dr. Nasser, that we have to be continuously vigilant to protect the well-being of all members of our community. Mm-hmm. I know the board's very concerned about this. I'm very concerned about this.
Definitely, yeah. So kind of continuing on with this issue. So recent news of the Whisper Network citing 12 alleged incidences in which sexual harassment and assault have occurred at the university has mirrored conversations occurring across the nation and in Hollywood, specifically with movements such as Me Too and Time's Up, encouraging survivors to speak out against perpetrators. So what actions has the university taken to combat sexual assault and harassment at our own institution in the aftermath of these national conversations? And how do you see national conversations surrounding sexual misconduct reflective in your administrative decisions?
Sure. So, a lot of that I answered a second ago, but, simply to reiterate, sexual harassment and misconduct, have no place in our community. And just as we were talking about with intensity student sexual misconduct and all forms of gender-based mistreatment of humans by humans, we have to be vigilant about and try our best to protect the community and have everyone treated with mutual respect. We have to continuously be sure our procedures and policies are as good as they could be, our educational and training efforts reach down throughout the whole organization, that people who do feel as if they've been the victim of harassment or misconduct or they've witnessed others should feel comfortable coming forward, and we should protect their place in the workplace and their anonymity when they do come forward. So we continue to focus and work hard on this. If there's a silver lining to the Me Too moment that we're living in, is the increased awareness and the very brave example set by people who have stepped up and spoken about episodes have made others more likely to step forward and report, which is a good thing, and has just raised everyone's consciousness about the sort of mutual respect that everyone deserves when we treat one another. Later this week, we'll be releasing our annual OIE report on misconduct and investigations. So that'll be on Wednesday, and you'll get much more information about that, about our experience over the last year. I would not be surprised if reports of misconduct have increased, of harassment, not necessarily because the incidents have increased, but because of this focus from the Harvey Weinstein to other very publicized episodes, and the famous and non-famous stepping forward to tell their stories, I think has a powerful effect, a positive, powerful effect on everybody.
Sorry. So, moving on now to more issues of free speech. In your letter to the university at the beginning of the semester, you announced a campus-wide series of events and activities to examine the intersection of free speech and inclusion, an important issue that continues to challenge both our campus and the nation. However, some voices on campus have criticized this series as not directly addressing issues of white supremacy and its negative impact on free speech. So considering this criticism of the event series, what does direct community engagement from the administration look like?
Well, yeah, I think that criticism is a great example of free speech. I think that the whole controversy around white supremacy is wrapped up in controversies around free speech. What I find particularly galling about some of the challenges we're facing here on this campus is there's very little that's more important to the short and long-term success of the university than establishing an environment where everybody feels free to discuss their ideas openly and to learn from differences between one another. We accomplish very little if we just put people in a room who think the same way and they reinforce one another's thoughts. That's not the way the world is, and when you get out of here, you're going to experience a wider diversity of opinion and a world you have to live and function in that doesn't confer necessarily to the norms of a campus. So it's very important, even when views are reprehensible, that they're not prevented the same speech rights that you and I enjoy. The big danger is that once we start defining who's allowed to speak and who isn't, those making those definitions may not make choices in the future that we agree with, and they might decide that I think the Daily has written about things that shouldn't be written about. They're against my values and they're offensive to me, so I'm going to shut you down. And God forbid something like that would happen. That'd be a terrible thing. So defending the First Amendment and speech rights, especially on a university that views itself as a marketplace of ideas and a sort of the cutting edge of social change, is just extremely important. And it's important mostly when it's really, really hard, like the episode we're going through now, because I have no interest in providing a platform or hearing personally white supremacist views. You know, I have enough of an idea about the content of what some of these folks want to say, and I find it abhorrent, and the overwhelming majority of our community feels the same way. We just don't have a legal way to tell someone they're not allowed to open their mouth.
Okay. Moving on to an academics perspective. So in classrooms at the university, professors are tasked with striking a balance between following their own course syllabi and discussing controversial matters that occur outside the classroom. So given the recent community's response to the possibility of white supremacist Richard Spencer speaking on campus, what do you believe the professor's role should be in discussing this sensitive issue? Should it be addressed in the academic setting? And what do you see as the pros and cons of such a discussion?
That's a really interesting question, and we've debated that a lot amongst the faculty and the leadership of the university. I think where we've landed is it's a question of the academic freedom of those individual professors in the classrooms they're monitoring. I could imagine in a class on political science or philosophy or cognitive psychology or history, there are many topics where there's a very natural tie-in to the issues of the day. And I could imagine professors as a great teaching vehicle using some of their time and attaching the things they're talking about in their class to the real world events that are happening like right here to make it very personal. I think that'd be a very effective teaching tool. I also think when dramatic things happen in society, 9/11 type things, or even these awful racist posters that we were subjected to earlier semesters in the last academic year. When things like that happen and they become front of conscious for students, I could imagine many professors deciding to spend a few minutes in their class acknowledging this, giving students a moment of voice, and then moving on to their curriculum. But in a university setting, we really don't tell professors what to do or teach in their classroom. But we do provide them with tools and with groups where they can discuss with their peers what the most effective responses to these episodes might be. So I used to teach courses on immunology and sort of basic biochemistry and developmental biology. And many of those things are not directly impacted by racist graffiti or by anti-Semitism. But I can imagine if I came into a classroom and everyone had just suffered this kind of psychological assault, it might be necessary for me to spend a couple of minutes acknowledging and discussing in order to be able to move on to the topic that's more core to the syllabus or curriculum I'm trying to teach. The Center for Research on Teaching and Learning, CRLT, provides instruction for faculty and for graduate student instructors on how to address issues like that come up in their classrooms. And many faculty are taking advantage of that, and all of our new faculty during orientation get exposed to this as well. So good question, something we should continue to re-examine. You know, the one group of people here that interact basically every day with every student are our faculty. So if we want to reach the student community, it works a lot better than me sending out an email to have really faculty in their classrooms focusing on these important issues.
In a follow-up to that, we see that there are some subjects such as history, such as cognitive science, that really have that impact, that can possibly talk about this discussion, but then we see other schools at the university, such as the College of Engineering, that may not even have that race and ethnicity requirement or may not lend themselves to that conversation. What do you see as the pros and cons to that? We have an element of the student body that's left out of that dialogue.
You know, yes and no. So I think if we want to pick on engineering for an example, it's an outstanding school of engineering, and a lot of what it's doing is training people to go off in the world and be engineers. And it turns out those folks are going off into diverse workplaces, and they're going to be working in teams, and they're going to be working in settings where there's fantastic academic literature showing that diversity enhances the creative output of groups of people. So I would argue that the engineers understand this, and that they're working on ways to infuse their curriculum with ideas around diversity and inclusion, not just because it's important for every one of us because we're going to go off and function in the world, but because it's professionally important for engineers. The engineers may do it in a different way than the historians or the anthropologists or the LSA decides to do it. Mm-hmm. But all of our senior leaders have made an effort to learn from one another's experiences in their different schools and figure out how to make issues of diversity and inclusion part of their curriculum. Whether it's in the form of a race and ethnicity requirement like LSA, or in the form of units that get woven into introductory engineering courses, I think the faculty and students are in the process of working out how to do that. But I think there's a recognition across the breadth of the campus that kind of educational experience is part of what it takes to be an educated, high-functioning, strong value person in society. So it's going to happen in all of our schools and colleges in different ways.
I guess any other follow-ups? See, I think we're all good.
Great. Well, good job, and
Great.
good luck with your work.
Thank you.
We live in interesting times, and
Thank you.
I would say, not just the national media, but the local media is more important than it's ever been.
Mm-hmm.
It truly is.
I agree with you on that
Good.
one. Great. Thank you very much.
That's what I used to do when I was a student. One of my activities my first couple of years in college was I wrote for I went to Princeton, so it was the Daily Princetonian, and same sort of things you were doing. And for part of my time, my beat was covering the administration. So if you make me nostalgic.
You were in our shoes once.
A little bit, a little bit. Yeah, I didn't have the access to the president of Princeton that you have to me.
That's fair.
I can tell you that.